All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the series we have over here, the Ashkafa series. We're learning the Sefer, The Real Me, uh, the Sefer written by Rav Yaakov Bushkovsky over here, translated into English by Rav Moshe Ginsburg, The Real Me. We're up to chapter 4. This week is Parsha Chukas Balak in America, and just Balak in here in Eretz Israel. So finally we get to give a Dvar Torah that works also for Americans. Also, we're talking how this chapter 4, relates to Parshas Balak. In chapter 4, it talks about, it's entitled The Soul and the Spirit. Basically, he divides, we have two urges inside of us. Two, I guess you can call it the Yitzhar Tov and the Yitzhar Hara. He doesn't say that, but he says we have two things. We have something called the Nefesh, the animalistic soul, and then we have the Nefesh Ha'elokis from Chalbis, because one Nefesh HaBahamis and one Nefesh Ha'elokis. The Nefesh HaBahamis is called Nefesh. Nefesh Ha'elokis, he says he's calling it the Neshama, but he puts in the footnote over here that the Gra really writes, and the Nefesh HaChaim really write, that it's really not exact, it's really not precise. Precisely, it should be called the Ruach. The Ruach is considered to be the spiritual side of us, the correct spiritual side of us. The Neshama is not. And that's really borne out by the pasuk. Vayipach ba'abav nishmas chayim nefesh chaya, right? Nefesh chaya, that's an animalistic spirit. A chaya is an animal. Nefesh chaya, nishmas chayim. The neshama is actually, the nefesh habahamis, the neshama. People get often confused, but he does point that out over here in the footnote over here, that really the word neshama is not the right word to use. The real word is the ruach, which kind of makes sense because, when a person, his emotions get the best of him, right, and he does things that don't make any sense, when you get very angry and your emotions get the best of you, so you become very hot, you become very, hot, he's angry, he's fuming, right? When you cool off, when your wine cools off, so then your common sense comes back to you, your logic, your proper decision making comes back to you. That's called cooling off, and ruach means a wind, which usually cools you. So that would really explain, the ruach is really your Yetzer Tov. He explains that what really this ruach or neshama, as he calls it, is basically free will. And he brings a pasuk. The pasuk in Devarim says, "Bacharta b'chayim." You should Reiki in Parshas Re'eh, the beginning. Ki anochi nosein lefnechem v'sachayim v'satov v'samavis v'sara. I'm giving you chayim and good. Bacharta b'chayim. You should choose the life which is good. And this is the makor for free will, that we have free will. And he explains this, that when we use our free will, the free will is not our animalistic desires, that the base desires that we have, that we share with all animals. He says, animals and humans have a lot of similar characteristics. Animals have a lot of positive characteristics. The animals will care for their young. That's why there's an isser of shiluach hakan. You can't take a baby in front of the mother, because it's cruel. Just like, a human being has motherly instincts. The mother takes care of the children. By birds, it's like that also. The Gemara in Eruvin says we learn a lot of things from animals. We learn sneas from a cat. They're very modest. They go to the bathroom in a modest way. We can learn from the ant. The ant doesn't steal. Ants never steal from each other. They work hard. They don't steal. We can learn the dove, the Yonah, it doesn't cheat on its mate. And you could learn from a rooster and a chicken. They have proper manners, especially kavod, or I don't know exactly what that means. It's exactly Gemara. It has kavod for its partner, for its soulmate. So we can learn a lot of things from animals, and we share a lot of things from animals. But as he points out, if you're just going to equate the animalistic desire of man and say that we're the same as animals because we both have good positive characteristics, so what differentiates man from animal? We're basically the same thing, right? He brings an example of certain people, like they won't eat meat. They won't eat meat, but maybe, when it comes to a homeless person lying in the street, they'll walk right by that person because it's, it kind of works the opposite. You care so much about animals that you become actually less than an animal, right? You're less than a human being, right? You don't care about other human beings. You only care about the animals. So that could happen if you just equate man with animals. Sometimes even animals take precedence over man. So what makes man different than animals? So he says the thing that makes man different from animals is that we have free choice. That animals don't have free choice. They don't have bechira. human beings have bechira, and that's something shared with all human beings, Jewish, non-Jewish. Everyone has bechira, and bacharta b'chaim. You have to choose life, and that makes us, And he says the base desires we were talking about in the previous chapter. We're talking about things like smoking, and people want to smoke. It makes them feel good. On the other hand, they know it's deleterious to their health, or they want to, they have time for themselves, but the Rebbe wants to give time to the parents, so he looks good in the eyes of the parents. He wants approval from so he knows deep down inside what the correct choice is. We have our animalistic desires. We want kavod from other people. We want to smoke. It momentarily makes us feel good. We want to satisfy an urge, but we know it's not the right thing. So when you make that right choice and you go with the life, you go with choosing the wise, prudent decision, which only man can make. Only human beings have this ability to have free will to make the right choice. Then you are actualizing life itself. You are become life itself. And this is the words he says. He says, the person who set the spirit of his intellect over his base desire and chooses to do good, he is the person who actualizes his power as a human being. He is alive, and the person who rules by his urges, his life is no life at all. His true self is choked by the brambles of fleeting desires. That's why it's called death. And in terms of the eternal neshama, it's exactly what it is. It is no metaphor. You literally, when you do not exercise free will and you give in to your base desires, or as we learned in last chapter, you rationalize those base. Sometimes, we do it in a very fancy way. We say, no, it's really, we really need to do what we're doing. We really need to, step on this person's toes or do something like that, take the money we're supposed to take because we need the money and it's a mitzvah, and we rationalize and it blurs the line, and where we come to a point where our free will, it's not just, it's one thing to not go with your free will and to say, I can't help myself. It's another thing when you're rationalizing, you say, I need it. Either way, you're misusing or not using your free will, and there's nothing worse than that. It's death. That's what the Torah says. As a maveh sarah. So how do you connect this to Parsha's Balak? Parsha's Balak talks about Balak. He hired Bilam. He hired Bilam to go help curse Klal Yisrael. There's a famous Gra. The Vilna Gaon says that Bilam really wanted to go for Balak. He wanted the honor that Balak was going to give him. He wanted the money that Balak was going to give him. And he had this dream. He said, let me see what Hashem says. And, he has his dream at night. And Hashem says, no, you can't go with them. And he persists. And he says, maybe I can go, right? And the Vilna Gaon says that that finally Hashem consented. He said, you can go. But he said, you can go, I think he said, itam, imahem. He said, go with them. I mean, you can go with them, but not with what they want to do. They want you to curse. You can go with them, and you'll do whatever I want you to do, Hashem, and you'll give them a blessing. And it says that Bilam eventually, it says he listened to Hashem, quote unquote, and he went itam, he went with them. And there's a different word, es and im. Es is not only to go physically with them, but to also go with the same intention as them. So a lot of times when we're in this concept of free will, it's very difficult, right? It's something it's very some decisions you think are very easy, but we're constantly living our lives, and we want to have success in life, in our careers. We want something like, we want a certain person to marry. We want a certain, a base desire that we want to run after, money or women or things like that, or even, sometimes honor. We want to have, be famous as a big Torah scholar, things like that. These are things which, unfortunately, they start as good motives, right? It's a good thing to want to get married. It's a good thing to need. You need to have money to live. You want to be a Talmid Chacham so you can know the Torah and keep the Torah and teach the Torah to others. But you have to remember that if there's a decision that comes up which is causing you to stray from that path, right, where you're going itam, you're going with the other people, right? Most people misuse their free will and they do the wrong thing. And when you enter among other people, make sure you always go imahem, right? You might go with other people. There might be certain things that you have to join the public. You're not supposed to be porish minat tzibur. You're not supposed to be porish minat tzibur. But if everyone's doing something wrong, and that's part of your community's doing it, right? It's not a good rationale necessarily to separate from community, but just remember, go imahem, go with them, but not with the right intention. Keep to your inner truth. You have to always be truthful to yourself first and foremost. Know who you are and what you really want and what the real right choice is. Sometimes we have to go through the motions and we go to places, right? You're part of a family. Your family wants to get together. You'd rather be learning Torah or something like that. It doesn't mean you should learn Torah and not go. You should go to the family gathering. You should go to the bar mitzvah, the wedding. You should go. You should be there, but you should always be imahim. It shouldn't be itam. It shouldn't be that you're going and you know what? Hey, I'm here anyway. Now I can just let down my guard. I can just forget about my free will. I can just go ahead and party over here. Or the opposite. Sometimes I could just go ahead and become too from whatever is wrong, and only a person himself deep down knows what's the wrong thing. So you have to be true to yourself. Sometimes we have to go with other people. We go with our community. We go to places because that's the right decision. And we made the right decision to go to those places, but it should always be imahim. It should always be with them. We should always have our own inner conscience to make sure that we don't lose the proper perspective on what the right thing is. Have a good Shabbos. Be well.